Androids versus iPhones. Should you switch? Hey, if you use an iPhone or an Android device, you should watch this informative film on the argument over which operating system is superior and if you should switch to one or the other. 10 separate comparisons of Android and iPhones are given below. Display. Starting with the display, the iPhone is intriguing because it's responsive and has a touch sample refresh rate that's close to that of a Samsung screen like the S22 Ultra. It's definitely the smoothest 120Hz display. I believe the S22 Ultra just barely outperforms it in several areas, such as brightness and sharpness. But if you're asking, is it a wonderful plus screen? When you are in a bright environment, an S22 Ultra screen feels like a separate class. There are some edge cases where a slight curve around the edge in the iPhone feels easy and comfortable to hold, so I give it a little extra credit there. If we compare the iPhone to all of Android, it receives an A+. But if we compare it to Samsung alone, Samsung is trailing by a small margin, so we'll call it a draw for now. Performance. Performance appears to be a pretty simple issue, because if you're a gamer who doesn't care about the stats, the iPhone performs better and uses less power when you run tests like the Geekbench multi-core benchmark. The iPhone is the clearer winner if performance is measured in the terms of smooth feel frames per second and other similar metrics, as well as overall power efficiency. Androids have one advantage. They have a lot more RAM, like the top-of-the-line iPhone 13 Pro, which has up to 12 gigs of RAM. Is it true that 3 GB of RAM on an iPhone feels like 8 GB of RAM on an Android phone? In your experience, does that make a difference to the multitasking experience? Or does it not matter that 3 GB of RAM on an iPhone feels like 8 GB of RAM on an Android phone? You can multitask more on the Samsung phone because of the XRAM, but also because there are features that let you do more, like split-screen multitasking on an Android. Battery. Moving on to the battery. The iPhone 13 Pro Max has the best battery life out of all the big phones, and the iPhone 13 Pro has the best battery life out of all the small phones. However, there is another aspect of the battery, the charging. How much do you think that influences the battery experience? Does it matter to you that it dies sooner or if it charges quickly? We don't mind it dying sooner because we know we can plug it in for 5 minutes and be fine. If I had to choose between great battery and mediocre charging and fast charging, I would go with great battery and mediocre charging. However, if you don't have a great battery, you better have good charging. A lot of Android phones have incredible charging, and the iPhone can charge decently quickly. Not super fast, but I still consider it to be the category winner, simply because the baseline battery life is so excellent. Camera. Okay, this is where things get a little bit interesting. We want to talk about cameras, starting with photography. I suppose a good way to get a sense of the scale is to say that if you had to choose just one phone to take photos with for the rest of your life, it would be an iPhone. You take photos from the camera app, but you also sometimes take photos inside another app, such as Instagram Stories, TikTok's video shooter. The iPhone produces the best final results, but we could argue for Samsung's S22 Ultra in some shots, especially in darker environments. And we can argue for iPhone in some shots with the ultra wide, making it more of a tie. Moving on to videography. I believe the answer is likely even simpler and the same. Therefore, the iPhone prevails here as well. Eco-consciousness. As a result, eco-consciousness has become somewhat of a hot topic recently. In your opinion, if a user is concerned about the environment, which phone is better for them on average, iPhone or Android? I suppose the fair comparison would be an iPhone flagship versus an average Android flagship, so we take like a rounded average of the Sony, Xiaomi, and the Samsung. But Apple's devices currently use approximately 20 recycled materials on average, making them the most in the industry right now. They also have the most ambitious goal of becoming carbon neutral. They want to be carbon neutral by 2030, whereas I believe the majority of other companies are more likely to be so by 2040 or 2050. Apple appears to be ahead, so this goes to the iPhone. Software reliability. I believe that it has to do that for safety reasons, but there are a lot of minor factors in the software that make the iPhone specifically like to stop wireless charging when it gets warm. No phone is flawless, so I think that's sort of the baseline you're working with. Occasionally, the settings app will just crash when we open it, and it will just disappear, as Android would inform you, like give you an error message or something. It's just those small things that we notice, but just in regular apps you've done a lot of the side-by-side, you can see how they're very similar. In Android, when we open the camera app the first time, and it'll open up right away. Take the shot, yeah, and then a week later we go to open the camera and it goes. Let us think about that for a second, and then it opens up, yeah. So we'll give reliability a draw. Software features. With iOS 16, you can send a message to someone and they can jump into a SharePlay with you. However, the caveat with a lot of the iPhone's cool features is that they're further locking you into more Apple products. There are many features in the Android world that are very important to a small number of people. And there are features like iMessage, FaceTime, and AirDrop in the iPhone world that are pretty important to a lot of people, but a smaller number of features. However, there is an endless list of those features that you can find on some Android phones that will tilt it in their favor. One of the main advantages that Android used to have was customization. But you could argue that Apple is catching up with that, especially now with iOS 16, all that lock screen stuff, so it's a tie. Software Assistant. There are two assistants, Siri on the iPhone and Google Assistant on Android. I think most people would agree that Google Assistant is superior to Siri because it is faster, can do more, and is more intelligent. Do you have any thoughts on the differences between the new features that Google revealed for Android 13 and those that Apple revealed for iOS 16? Although the iPhone is behind the times when it comes to customizing lock screen widgets, they offer the best options, so I give the iPhone the edge here. However, there are a lot of cool features coming from both camps overall, so we'll call that category a draw. Software support. This is another one of those cases where on paper, Apple seems to win because it gives you 5 years of updates. The closest competitor is Samsung, which gives you 4, then drops to 3, 2, and sometimes 1 in ugly cases, so that one goes to the iPhone. On the other hand, even though Android has less support from third parties, they do have better community support. You've got the custom from the community, modding forums, and things like that. Price. Let's take a hard look at the differences in cost between Android phones and iPhones. We'll stick with the iPhone versus Samsung Galaxy phone comparison because it makes the most sense. The iPhone 13 Pro Max is Apple's most expensive phone at the time of writing. Apple sells the base model for $1,099. It has 3 cameras on the back, a 6.7-inch display, 128 gigabytes of storage, and the Galaxy S21 Ultra is Samsung's top-of-the-line smartphone without a foldable screen. Samsung charges $1,199 for the base model. It has 4 cameras on the back, a 6.8-inch display, 128 gigabytes of storage, and as you can see, the high-end devices offered by both businesses have very comparable features and prices. The Galaxy S21 Ultra, on the other hand, only offers 256 gigabytes of storage for $1,249, whereas the iPhone 13 Pro Max offers 1 terabyte of storage for $1,599. Thus, the iPhone prevails here. Therefore, the iPhone is superior to Android in many ways, but this is entirely up to the users and their preferences regarding various features. That's all from my side. If you enjoyed our video, please like it and press the bell icon to ensure that you never miss any more content.